Hello. So today I wanted to show you guys something I thought was pretty cool, and that would be Kal-Arath. So its description is a role-playing game for 1+ players in a world of high adventure. And I think this is something really special. So Kal-Arath is made by Castle Grief. They make amazing art, and they do a lot of Substack posts about OSR gaming and solo gaming as well. I think this is their first attempt at a full-fledged solo RPG, and I have to say that they really knocked it out of the park with this one. As I said earlier, everything you need is inside this zine. This is my home printed copy. So it starts with a little bit of an introduction into the world. It's really a swords and sorcery kind of world, so it's much more of that rather than high fantasy or grim dark. It's somewhere in between. He does mention that Kal-Arath is going to be the first installment in what will be a series of booklets, each one made to play solo or with friends with no preparation, allowing your story to emerge from the dice and your own imagination. While Castle Grief provides a lot of rules for how to play the game, a lot of it can be supplanted with your own rules pretty easily. He mentions that the game is inspired by Merkborg, Barbaric, and Black Sword Hack, which is a pretty good combo, I think. While the setting is very interesting, I'm actually not going to cover it too much, because a lot of it is actually shown through the tables later on, as you'll see. There's also the rules here, which I won't go through too much as well, because like I said, you can supplant it with your own rules. It's a pretty simple rule set, and the nice thing about this is that you can play the whole game with just d6s, which is very, very nice and prevents you from being taken out of the experience. From my experience, playing a lot of solo RPGs, having just one set of dice can actually speed things up a lot and keep you in the moment. But the real thing I want to get into is the tools that he has for solo play. This is slightly tangential, but having made a bunch of solo oracles, I can say that there's definitely an art to making the kind of tables that you need in order to fuel your imagination. I find that the best way to make sure that your tables are usable is to battle test them a lot. Try to use them in your own games, try to interpret from them frequently, see what you can make from them. Don't just come out with something interesting that might not fit into something else. And the reason I think Kal-Arath works so well is that it was born out of Castle Grief's own solo sessions. So firstly, the general oracle. So for yes/no questions, it's pretty simple. Just roll a d6, 1 to 3 is no, 4 to 6 is yes, with all odds being a but. I find this phrasing a bit weird. How I will do it is just 3 is a no but, and 4 is a yes but yeah. So far it's pretty normal. For insight questions, roll 1 to 3 times on the following tables and ascertain a meaning from the words generated. This is where I think it starts to get interesting. He divides the table up into story questions, turning points or situations, and insight into people, places, and things. So this gives you something to latch onto if you're trying to describe a thing, or you're trying to describe a person, then you will use this. If you're trying to describe a situation, or you're trying to describe something that's happening in the story, then you go to this. And I think that's a very neat divide. It's something that's very practical, and it's something that I see come up a lot in my own solo sessions. What's more, all of the entries in both of these tables are extremely relevant to the swords and sorcery world that Castle Grief is creating using Kal-Arath. Now, going through how overland travel works, there's a procedure for it. Firstly, you roll for weather, then you roll for whether you get lost, you see whether you forage, and then you see whether you have a point of interest, which is a 2 in 6 chance, or you have an encounter, which is also a 2 in 6 chance. I like that he focuses on using a reaction check and makes it part of the procedure, because reaction checks, as we know, can vastly change the way that an encounter plays out. But again, going back a little bit to the points of interest, all of these are extremely interesting in and of themselves, but they can actually be combined with other stuff as well. Here's some examples of stuff I've generated from these tables. A colossal 10-floor stone watchtower, long abandoned with the stairs demolished and a rope leading up the first 5 floors. I've generated a lone yurt, which is kind of like a tent. With its rounded top opened up, a rotting stink comes from within it, filled with decaying skeletons surrounding a ritualistic circle. I've generated a stony field with the stones getting sharper as they go on, but with obsidian glinting within the stones. It is tended to by an outcast of a local tribe, who claims that the lightning, when directed to the field via magical rituals, causes the stone to turn to obsidian. All of these were generated from Kal-Arath, with pretty minimal interpretation, I would say. In addition to the points of interest, what really interests me about Kal-Arath is the settlements generation. So there's a size and type, each with different amounts of people. You can have a dominant faction or group, or you can have several small groups competing for resources. You can have different roles for the NPCs, all of which again fit the setting. Motivations for them. You have traits, resources and trade, rumors and opportunities. This one I like a lot because it can fuel a lot of quests and a lot of gameplay. Potential conflicts or challenges that you can solve, special features or events that might be happening. And all this is very substantial even though it's on so few pages. I'd like to share a village that I actually made from these tables. The village is ruled by a nomadic family of 5. They are concerned about a brash warlord who's been recruiting some of the villagers into becoming bandits. They trade in goods, mostly textiles and clothing, and are angered that they have actually been losing money because of this warlord, but they're unable to do too much about it. There is a rumor they will tell adventurers about abandoned yurts nearby, which hold great treasure, but it's a trick. It's actually the warlord's encampment, and they are hoping to thin out the warlord's numbers that way. This one I did use some interpretation for it, but a lot of it came from the tables. A lot of it was just yes and no questions afterwards. So as you can see, you can create something fairly substantial, and more importantly, you can have stuff that will fuel your gameplay. You have quests, you have conflicts that you can solve, you have various things that are interesting, and that can actually change the course of your story. So in addition to that, you also have dungeon generation, which I have not gone into that much, but looks very cool. You have boss rooms, hazards, obstacle traps, foes. You have a whole bestiary over here as well. And these monsters can be very easily reskinned to other things if you want to actually come up with your own creatures. And finally, one more thing that I forgot to get into. This table for what fate brought you here is incredibly evocative and can get you started immediately. And I think that's one of the hang-ups for a lot of new solo role players. It's hard to know what your motivation is, and this gives you a very direct motivation. For my previous adventure, I got 2. Slavers came to your village and burned it down, taking some of your people with them. Find them, rescue your people, and exact a terrible vengeance. So that really got me going and was a good impetus. So yeah, this comes highly recommended. I don't think just to solo role players, but to people who want to be able to prep for their sessions more effectively and are running something in this kind of setting. I think this is perfect for that. I also think this is great for GM-less adventures. And I don't think that all solo material is suited to that necessarily speaking, but I think this definitely is. So I'll drop all the links below. I'll drop a link to this, Castlegreaves, Substack, and Itch. He actually has a Merkborg campaign that I haven't checked out yet, but I want to. And yeah, if you enjoyed this review and you think it was helpful, it's a review, right? Yeah, I think it's a review. I don't really do that many reviews, but if you think it was helpful, hit like and subscribe and share with your friends. Tell me what you think about this zine. I really like this, and I'm just really impressed by it overall. So I wanted to get this video out. So hope you enjoyed it and have a nice day. Goodbye.